Hey everyone, it's Raghu, and I'm back with Mindrolling, and I'm here with Melinda Edwards. And Melinda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Raghu. It's great to be here.
So this podcast has is rich with a few different things. Melinda has a wonderful book called Psyche and Spirit, which describes her journey and the journey of her daughter. And so this is a spiritual journey, and it's a journey around what is much more common than we think, which is autism.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to talk about that as well. But, I thought I had a really screwed up growing up. And, but your story isn't that different than many, many, many people who grew up in the fundamentalist movement. But to get the detail of it, I don't think I've gotten that kind of detail that you shared. It's extraordinary. Now, of course, I didn't grow up in a fundamentalist household, but I grew up with a tyrannical father, and you seem to have experienced that as well. I was fortunate that my guru, Neem Karoli Baba, got me to give my father acid when he came to visit us in India, which I was completely not ready for whatsoever. Either him coming or me giving him acid, and it changed the course of our lives. So we were very fortunate, my father and I, both of us. So, and that happened for you. I think it had a longer gestation period, but can you? Yeah, I think everybody would love to hear how you grew into and out of what this karma dictated for you.
Well, first, just the broader perspective as you were talking, what came to mind was what a friend said a few days ago to me. He said, some people say that when our souls come in, as a soul, we meet with a group of elder souls and we discuss the karma that we're going to work out in this lifetime. And inevitably, the elder souls, like the individual soul, is like, give me it all. I want to work through it all. And the elders are like, temper that. Like, hey, now that would be a lot. Let's take it down several notches. And so what I said to my friend was, I must have been a really good bargainer. And it sounds like you were too, to some degree. But yeah, so I grew up as a child of medical missionaries. My parents were missionary doctors, fundamentalist Christian, in a Mayan Indian village in Guatemala. It was like going back a couple hundred years. We had an outhouse and we were considered very wealthy. The Indians just, not to necessarily go on about toileting things, but they would go up on the mountainside. That's just how it was, or squat by the side of the road.
We're familiar, related to spending a lot of time in India.
Absolutely.
We're very familiar.
Same. So just another way of being. And my parents were there to provide medical help, but primarily to spread the word of God. And it was a hellfire and brimstone version. And so I grew up with tremendous terror because I tried so hard to sort of receive the Lord in my heart many times and never felt any different. And so I assumed that I was doomed to hell, that Jesus wouldn't come into my heart, that there was something terribly wrong with me. So this terror permeated my childhood and early adolescence. And I didn't tell anybody because I felt so ashamed. Like there must be something so horribly wrong with me that Jesus wouldn't come into my heart. So all alone with this, not to mention family dynamics, as you kind of alluded to. My dad, in retrospect, had what we don't call Asperger's anymore. We call it like level 1 autism, but very clearly, in retrospect, he had that exquisitely sensitive to sounds. And so he would blow up and go into rages. So all these dynamics, not to mention the political situation and, scary stuff happening.
Where you were in Guatemala, you mean?
Yes. Ultimately, we left. A lot of missionaries were getting threatened by the guerrillas, and we had propaganda thrown in our patio and starting to hear gunshots. It was that time when it was getting really bad there. So at any rate, we left Guatemala, and other traumas that I, really don't even have time to go into, but as we were leaving Guatemala, our car rolls down the side of
Oh,
a
yeah,
cliff.
no, that's quite a story.
I
Tell us.
mean, all
Jesus.
6 of us in the car. Back then, no seatbelts, and it's a barranco, like it goes straight down. We couldn't see the bottom. Way down below, once we got out of the car, you could see clouds. We're on these
Really? Oh,
mountains.
shit.
But our car rolls over 3 times. Our utility trailer with all of our belongings, breaks off. All of our belongings spill over the mountainside. Our windshield pops out. And somehow, and we landed in different parts of the car, but none of us were thrown out of the car. Somehow we were all okay. I mean, miraculously. So we're pulling on these roots, climbing up to the side of the road. I was maybe 12 then. So that was yet another trauma that we just hardly talked about. We just didn't talk. So how all that landed for me, Raghu, was, all these intense emotions just built up, and I ended up with anorexia nervosa, severe. Almost died. My parents didn't believe in psychological illnesses, so they were in denial as well. And finally, I was in heart failure and ended up in the hospital.
Where?
That's another
Was
story
that
in itself.
Was that in Guatemala?
No, it was when we came to
When
the
you came
States.
back? Yeah, right.
I had started losing weight before we came to the States, but then it accelerated when we got here. So just culture shock and all of it, the whole 9 yards. So that threw me into, I was in a psychiatric hospital eventually, and it threw me into therapy. For the first time, I was recognizing my emotions and being able to put words on them and being conscious of them. And so for years I was in therapy, and, the eating disorder, as I sort of took care of the backlog of emotions and learned how to be present with what was coming up. The eating disorder disappeared. I mean, I had to work at it too, but the symptom went away basically. But I was still like doing this therapy stuff. And what it felt like to me was, this is going to go on forever. Like, what's the end point here? There was something else, that wasn't happening with therapy, with emotions, with self-parenting, all that kind of stuff. And I just felt this dissatisfaction and the beginnings of this longing. And I didn't know for what. And then a friend, no, I was in a Unity bookstore, and Grist for the Mill fell into my hands. So did I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. But Grist for the Mill, it's like, there's a living person. It's what I'm longing for really exists. It's real. And there's a person that's alive today that gets it. This was, of course, before internet, before anything, and so so many serendipitous things. My boyfriend at the time, his mother lived in North Carolina, sent me an article that Ram Dass was coming to town. She didn't even know that I'd read the book. So I just go beeline right up there. And, when I saw him, I'm sure you've heard many stories like this, but I just wept because I still put it externally, there was but a living being who was embodying what I was longing for. And so I followed him around the world, and we had synchronicities where we ran into each other at the airport and stuff like that. And he was very supportive of my process, going through med school, all that stuff. And of course, through him, I came to know Neem Karoli Baba. So that's, and then just diving in deeper and deeper. And well, go ahead. I'm just going on and on, Raghu. You tell me where you want to go with
going
it.
on and on is perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was born out of, so there's a lot of trauma that you had, and you started doing therapy. And there's no difference. I met Ram Dass, quite a bit of time before you. And I had the same, I didn't end up, and it was the same thing, actually, just the same thing. Oh, shit. Well, actually, I was on a radio station. I was a program director at a radio station, and they asked me to, hey, can you tell everybody that Ram Dass is going to do a lecture at McGill? And I said, I didn't know who Ram Dass was in that moment. And they said, Tim Leary and Richard Alpert. Okay. So, that immediate, I was part of that whole psychedelic movement, not movement, whatever. We didn't know anything. We were just, wow, this is incredible. And then they sent me a tape, and I had the same reaction as you and everyone I've ever talked to that met Ram Dass at some point in their lives. And they got that transmission of someone speaking to them like no one had spoken to them before.
Yes.
And just absolutely convinced. I was totally in trust of what he was saying and how he was saying it. And I immediately went out and they told me where to go find him, and I did. And we met in this space that was just an unconditional space. He wasn't caring about him, neither Ram Dass or Richard Alpert, for that matter. It was just okay. What's needed here?
Yes,
for you?
Yes. That first time that I met him at that workshop, I remember we were in a bathroom break, and everybody was standing in line to say hi to him. And I stood in line, and I had in my mind, I wanted to tell him that I grew up in Guatemala because I knew his Seva Foundation had done work there.
Yeah.
I'll have that to connect with him about, and I knew it was my ego coming in and all that, but I couldn't help it. I wanted to be sort of special. Yeah, I got this. So then it's my turn. I get up there and I just start weeping. And he just put his enormous arms around me, and just this deep sound from his belly. Meeting me, what was arising. There weren't any words for it. It was just this deep, I don't even know what it was, unless it, this core pain, maybe the pain of separation, that we all have at our core. And there he was with that. No words. There was no words exchanged, and then the weeping finally subsided, and I stepped away, and then I watched him. And he was so present with whoever they were at. The next person was sort of chit-chatting about some stuff or whatever, and he was right there with them, holding the space for all of it. I will never, ever forget that. It was such a beautiful, beautiful experience of someone just holding this unconditional space and love for each of us to be as we are. And in that space, what needs to arise does arise, in spite of ourselves, in spite of me anyways.
Oh, yes. In spite of you.
Yeah. It rose up anyways, the pain that needed to come up.
Yeah. Well, that was his gift. It really was. Hey, we sound like the Ram Dass Love Club.
I know.
All right. But the truth is, and I hear this all the time, it was a moment for most people who met him that made a significant difference in their life. They were exposed to something that we had not been exposed to before.
Yes.
And that there was a trust, because he was so honest about his own foibles and all of that just, it was unparalleled, just absolutely. And one time in retreat, you may have been there. Were you at more than one?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a number, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Maui. We were talking about trust, a few of us. And Ram Dass is sitting next to me. And I told him, he would remember that he may have, I don't remember, met him in Montreal and went and we hung out. And trust was the feature, that trust that I had led me to India. And then, so I said, Ram Dass, what was your first sense of trust? And who or what? And he just immediately looked at me and went, mushrooms. And right. That makes sense. And he had that relationship his entire life.
Mhm.
He really did. But
Yes.
in the book you talk about despair, and and I know from reading it there was a lot of that in the early part of your life. And but I
Yeah.
think this is good to share with everybody.
Yeah.
That despair drew you deeper and deeper into this place, which all of us have known at one time or another in our lives.
Mhm.
And you say despair is impossible to ignore and impossible to escape. It rests on the razor's edge of surrender. I think, bravo for bringing that up. And that gives
Mm.
you some way of creating enough space to allow this to take place and move along at its own pace, right?
Mhm.
You say surrender emerges when there's nothing left to get, nowhere to go, nothing to accomplish, nothing left to work on. Yeah. And you
Yeah.
do it's amazing. Yeah, talk about it in your own experience.
I mean, I think it was Ram Dass who used the phrase "the project of me."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like that. In surrender, in my experience, the project of me just kind of disappears. Like all that I talked about during therapy, working on myself, improving this, improving that, because it's endless. And it's not that, I mean, I do work on myself, I get grumpy with my daughter or whatever, and I don't want to do that. So I work hard not to do that, or, different
Use mindfulness, really.
yeah, human aspects come up, but it's not like this ongoing project. I don't know how else to say it. It's not like this major project in my life. Things come up and I work with them. And the other part of that I just find so miraculous is whatever comes up for me, and my worldview is whatever comes up for anybody. So our psychology, our contractions, our issues, whatever comes up is itself the doorway back home to our hearts. Like, isn't that a miracle? Each of us has a perfectly individualized um, path laid out right in front of our noses each moment. Oh, this is the doorway. And what I found, this is this doorway that can take me deeper. And what I've found out in my life is if I ignore the doorway, whatever it is comes back knocking harder the next time. So more suffering the next time until I'm really willing to walk through that door and open to whatever is sort of asking me to be present with.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's that Leonard Cohen song? There's
Mm.
a crack in the heart so the light can get through. Something like
Yeah.
that, right?
I love that. Yes. Yeah.
That's real. It's totally real. Well, so when you met Ram Dass, so you were really young, right? I mean, really
I
young.
was
You're still
I
young,
think I
but
was 19. No, I'm not that young. I think I was about 19 when I met him. Yeah.
so I'm going to fast forward, and this is uh, it's something I was wondering as I read.
Hmm.
Much later, no, somewhat later in your life, you met a teacher,
Hmm.
and you had this quite a. I mean, I think it went on for a couple of years or something,
Hmm.
right? In terms of a relationship as a student with a teacher, and in that process, eventually he proclaimed himself to be a guru, etc.
Hmm.
And somehow, through all of these circumstances, you did wake up, so to speak, thinking it because you were thinking it was the truth, but ended up maybe not being so. So okay, here's my question. I mean,
Hmm.
terrible of me, but
No,
you met
please.
you met Ram Dass and
Uh,
later Krishna Das. You
Yes.
had them available to talk to, because I know you had wrote back and forth with Ram Dass and so on, and saw Krishnadas at various things. What I don't quite. How come you weren't processing that through that which you totally trusted in the very beginning?
Yeah,
That's
that's
my
a really
question.
good question. Like, why would I go to another teacher? And I
Well, no,
don't,
I'm sorry,
or
but yeah, let me just say,
yeah.
I don't think that that's any issue. I mean, all of us, right? When we met Neem Karoli Baba, we went off and did all kinds of other things. I mean, some of them he got rid of us just to say, go do that. He used to tell Ram Dass, go see Swami Muktananda. Yeah, no, he's a good sadhu. You know, he said all this crazy stuff about other teachers and about other gurus and everything as nothing. Go, go, go. And then after he left, we absolutely did. Many of us, especially, have taken teachings with Tibetan lamas and so on and others. So it wasn't about that. It was about there was something you gave in to this particular being
Mhm.
that was much more dramatic.
Yeah. Um, so this teacher, and I don't put his real name in the book because I was advised not to,
Mm,
but he was very not just charismatic, but had cities, like energy, powerful energy that he has them that is transmitted. And um, I was taken by that.
mm,
And there still was that longing there still, and I would say the transformation that happened, I almost don't even like the word awakening because it's like, I mean, we're all awakening all the time, right? It's not like I've arrived anywhere. I'm just here, still this human being. But the transformation that did happen was in spite of him, I would say. But I don't regret it because that's obviously what I needed,
yeah.
this intense, yeah. So
Yeah.
just so your listeners know, later it came out that this teacher had manipulated many students out of money, including myself.
Mm,
So, yeah.
right. That's what Maharaj used to say. Sex and money.
Mhm.
Watch out. Yeah, and that's of course so many of teachers that come here or that are homegrown. You know,
Mhm.
it's a very tough road to hoe
Yes.
to be doing
Yeah.
any of that before your seeds are cooked. You know, there's so
Right.
many,
Right.
so many. Uh,
I sometimes people come to me for support, and I just always find myself like sharing my very human aspects because I've been on the other side where I've sought support, and I still do sometimes, but it's so easy to project and idealize somebody who is supporting us, whether it's through their wisdom or through, um, their love or whatever. And there's something in me because of my past experience that's a little averse to, like, I just want it to be, hey, we're all in this together.
mm.
Um, that's my preference. Nothing wrong with spiritual teachers or anything like that, but just from my own past experience, my preference is just, hey, we're in this together. Let's get down to business and support each other.
It's a matter of honesty, really.
Yeah, that too.
Ramdas, that's why Ramdas is so popular still, even after leaving that body. It's that kind of honesty, creates
Yes.
a trust. And he would say over and over, I am not a guru.
Hmm.
I am not enlightened, whatever that means to
Yes.
anybody. But he would say, but I can introduce you to someone who is.
Hmm.
And then he would talk about Maharaj-ji. So, yeah, unless it's a that
Right.
everybody is,
Right.
suspect in terms of, you know, turning
I
over
agree.
whatever you might think you're turning over and surrender.
Yes.
But
And
again, as you said, perfect. It gave you what you needed to help transform.
clearly, I've needed some really hard knocks, and that was one
Yeah,
of them. One of
yeah,
many.
really,
I've
really,
got a hard
Melinda.
head and apparently a hard heart that's, thank goodness, now much more open. But
Not hard at all.
well, it took a
Traumatized,
lot of knocking. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
traumatized. That's
Yeah.
all it is. And and as you say yourself, when you talk about trauma, um, you have experienced enormous pain. And you just
Yeah.
said to me, sometimes people come and they want to talk to me about their lives and so on. You can really speak to them. You can really
Yes.
share with them, and those of us
Yes.
that can say, hey, this isn't new. I have been through this myself, and are willing to be that kind of honest. That's how you can really help people, I
Yes.
believe.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm a psychiatrist, and I love what I do.
oh, is
So
that where you? Oh, I didn't know. I
yeah,
thought you
so
were a
people do.
medical doctor.
Well, it is an MD, but the
Yeah.
specialty is psychiatry. And so,
No, I did. Yeah, I thought it wasn't. I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, so I'm like so fortunate. I get to, people come to me and share their suffering with me every day. And um,
Hmm.
I think you nailed it when people, when I've been on the other side too, your being knows when someone has opened to that level of pain or anger or whatever it is that's coming up. When they've opened to that in themselves, they can fully meet that in someone else. And not until we open to that in ourselves can we. We can provide band-aids or say the right things, but the client or person or friend knows when we are really meeting them energetically there, because we've already gone there ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, um, of course, psychedelics are extremely. Oh, there's a psychedelic revolution going on right
Yes.
now for the last number of years, and actually, we're making a big point out of representing Ram Dass's purview around psychedelics, the integration of the experience,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, what do we do now? Oh,
Yes.
well, every weekend we can do another ayahuasca trip or something, and so he really spoke to that,
Yes.
the attachment of the experience and everything else. So, have you had experience in terms of this area? I mean, because you talk a lot about the the um, the depth of the construct of me, the death of the construct of
Mm-hmm.
me,
Mm-hmm.
which immediately leads me to start thinking about psychedelics, because
Uh-huh.
that certainly was our avenue back then. I mean, Ramdas used to say, I don't know if I would have completely, fully been able to absorb whatever I could of Neem Karoli Baba without psychedelics at
Yes.
that time in his life. Later on, of course, and he would go back to it from time to time over the decades, just as a check-in kind of a thing. And so that wasn't part of his life the way it was in the 60s and
Mm-hmm.
maybe early 70s. But certainly that is an opener, a big opener
Yes.
related to the moving on of the construct of me.
Yes. Well, you know, I wish it had been my path, except that I've only smoked weed twice. This is how, but my system is
Weed is
so,
like beer, so that's
it's
not it.
nothing.
Yeah.
But my system is so sensitive that
Oh,
threw me
yeah.
into this expanded state where there was no body there, just probably what psychedelics do
Oh,
for people.
really? You got that
So
with it?
exquisitely sensitive, and I couldn't, and then the weed stayed in my system for so long. I was in this not even altered state. I was walking around where there wasn't a me, and I was in med school and I had to function, so I'm like, I am never doing this again. And that was my experience with
Yeah. With
any kind of substances. I think they're a very valuable path. For me, it all happened during meditation retreats. The same thing you've experienced with psychedelics, or other people experience with psychedelics. I would and probably you've experienced on meditation retreats too, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. That's a little bit more rare in comparison with the immediacy of a
Uh-huh.
psychedelic journey. But they come in all shapes and forms, so you never know what
You
you're
never
gonna.
know.
You never
And
know.
I
But
was so driven, like that longing was so intense that whenever I went on a retreat, from the moment I sat down, or even just when I meditated on my own, I mean, I would give it everything I had, like 2000%. So there was an intensity that I think kind of drilled into my consciousness pretty deeply. I don't know, but
well, you talk about, so again, talking about the me that we all can relate to. I did an audio book with my friend Duncan Trussell called "The Movie of Me to the Movie of We," which I stole from Krishnadas, who he used to talk about that in his kirtan in the midst of his talks. I mean, his kirtans. He would give a little bit of a talk,
mhm.
and it would be, yeah, you wake up in the morning. It's the movie of me. Everything you're the director, you're the producer, you're the writer, the protagonist. You even do the reviews and read them.
That's great. I love it.
It was a great premise. So
So
we did
great.
this audio book, the movie of me to the movie of we, and so and that's a lot about what I like to get into on mind rolling, and the things that we do in the retreats and so on. It's who is that person, that
Mhm.
me that you're relating to, that all those thoughts, the story we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
the habitual patterns, the neurotic tendencies that just accumulate and make up, oh, yeah, that's who I am.
Yes.
And that's why I brought, of course, psychedelics, certainly in the beginning, they break. They break something up
Mhm.
inside
Break that
ourselves,
down.
so we are able to be much more spacious about from
Mhm.
moment to moment. So they certainly. The unfortunate part is why Ram Dass went to India. He kept coming down and he couldn't
Yeah.
understand. Okay, what's the use of this? And keep coming. I got to
Yes.
find somebody who really has that map of
Yeah.
consciousness, right?
Yes.
And he did, and he told us about it even when he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I think we're moving along now, and I definitely want to get in. When I'm talking about your daughter,
Mm.
Sachi, and
Mhm.
autism. And, can you imagine that into the culture, the thing that people see, there's a show on a Netflix type show. And, it's with a famous movie actor. Can't remember his name all of a sudden. But he plays uh, basically a hired killer. And he's autistic. It's an insane thing and very popular. And part of the whole thing is that he's able to do this stuff because he can't really identify with his emotions. I mean, it's not funny at all.
It is in a way. It's such a misconception. It really is. Wow, where do I even start with this? Well, eh, I'll just start with my daughter. When
Yeah,
she was
absolutely.
born, Sachi is her name. I don't even know how to put this into words, but she came in, she brought with her this love with a capital L. Just this, and everybody that walked in the house would experience this. And it just threw me into this state. And then, but she was hardly in her body. She'd
Mm.
stare off into space, and I would jump up and down in front of her, and she'd stare through me. I'd blow whistles and call her name, and no eye contact. It was as if she wasn't in this realm in some ways. Um, 16 months of age, she was diagnosed with autism, and that threw me into fear, like
Mm.
terror. So the love sort of went in the background, even though it was still there for me, my awareness of it. I was terrified that, I'm a single mom. What will happen to her when I'm gone if she can't function?
Mm.
And
Oh God.
what if she, the traditional medical paradigm is
Mm.
that these beings are not connected, they're disconnected. So what if she can't love and be loved in this world? Like that's what this whole realm is about, right? And so I was thrown into fear and threw us into all these therapies. But over time, it's like I saw so clearly. I just gave a TEDx talk on this, the gift of autism, on Wednesday.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah, and over time, I saw that she was so deeply connected that I was buying into this medical paradigm that
Mm.
she was disconnected. But the whole reason for some of her symptoms, like lack of eye contact, and by the way, that's just one symptom. I had two friends, autistic friends, tell me separately at one point that the reason they don't look into people's eyes is because it's like staring into someone's soul. They don't have the defenses and walls that the rest of us have to separate us from other people. And so they can't look or else it's too much. And same with meltdowns. My daughter and everybody else I know on the spectrum, my patients on the spectrum, my friends on the spectrum, they are so porous and exquisitely sensitive. They're absorbing everything, not just sensory input like lights and sounds. We all kind of know they're sensitive to that. My daughter wears headphones, but they're absorbing energy. They're absorbing people's emotions.
Mm.
And so, of course, that's going to be extremely overwhelming. And sometimes they're going to have a meltdown. So these symptoms, lack of eye contact, meltdowns, not being able, like, I'll just finish that first thought first. These symptoms are a reflection of this deeper connection. It's almost a paradox.
Mm.
Another thing I just remember so clearly with my daughter was when a friend who's very intuitive came over, and Sachi was still learning how to talk. I think she was like 6. And she said something like, you show you your room. And I just sighed and I said, Mary, Sachi, we've been working on pronouns, I, you, he for years, and she still hasn't gotten the hang of it. And I was just exhausted with working on all these things. So I just kind of sighed. She said, Mindy, of course she doesn't know I, you, he. To her, there is no you, there is no he. She's just,
Mm.
experiencing everyone as herself. And she still experiences other people's emotions as if they're her own. Just got an email from her teacher yesterday that she was weeping when someone was sharing in the class about the loss of their mother. So
How old is she now?
she's 16 now. Yeah.
Wow.
Can you believe it? I know when you saw her at Open Your Heart in Paradise, she was like little,
4 or 5 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So these beings are deeply connected in ways that many of us aren't. And they, in my experience, many of them come in that way. The rest of us, so they're learning how to be human. I'm having to teach my daughter how to be human. And one cool thing is
Wow.
she has a
Wow.
service dog, and she's constantly all day throughout the day explaining to him about being human because she thinks he's coming back next lifetime as a human. And she tells him, so this is how you hold your spoon, Wilder. And Wilder, it's important to be kind because it hurts people's hearts if you're just telling him all
Mm.
these aspects of being human because she's learning about being human herself.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
so they're coming to us from another realm. One of my friends, Susie Miller, communicates with nonverbal autistics telepathically. And my daughter isn't really able to articulate her experience well. I just sense it, But they have told Susie that they are here to shift the consciousness of humanity, to bring love with a capital L. And they're clear about that. They're very clear about that. Have you heard of the telepathy tapes, Raghu?
Yeah, you know what? My partner Katrina just told me about them. Said I've got
Uh-huh.
them, and you should, because I said I was going to meet up with you, and
Yeah.
I didn't manage to listen. But yeah,
Well,
tell me about them.
they highlight what I'm talking about. And of
Huh.
course, there's the pizzazz of, this researcher is on there doing research showing that these non-speaking autistics are telepathic, and they do these studies that prove that. But aside from that pizzazz, because there's a lot of autistics that don't have cities like that or whatever you want to call it, but at the end, the last couple of in the series, the last podcast, these beings are on their board typing out these amazing things like, yes, we're here to bring love into the world. You know, they know their soul's purpose. And so because they're so porous and open and sensitive, and they're coming into, this is me saying this, so I can't speak for them, but this is my experience with my daughter. She is so exquisitely sensitive and open and porous. Of course, it's so difficult to be in a world that is vibrating at a much lower frequency or is much harsher, however you want to put it. Of course, they're going to have what we might call symptoms, or, of course, it's going to be extremely challenging being here for them because they're vibrating at a much higher frequency. So that's my experience with my daughter. And I just want to share this too, because I always forget to say these things. And I've been told I absolutely must on this podcast. But I started this nonprofit named Living Darshan.
Yes.
livingdarshan.org is the website that serves to deepen the understanding of autism and neurodiversity in the world. We are going to have, in 1 year, we're going to have our first annual Neurodiversity, Science, and Spirituality Conference.
Can you define neurodiversity?
Yes. So it includes autism, ADHD, dyslexia, just unique ways of being wired, as opposed to what we call neurotypical, people who kind of function normally in the world. So we're having this conference, and Diane Hennessy Powell, the physician who's the main researcher on the telepathy tapes, is going to be our keynote speaker. So I'm really excited about it. And you can go to, we just created a website, nssconference.org, nssconference.com, if you want to get more information about it. So
yeah, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, Melinda. Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
No, absolutely. Wow, that's quite amazing. That experience you had, you had a case that you won relative to your daughter that you fought really hard for. That seems to, just describe that for a minute. That was
I'm trying to remember even. Oh, yeah, because, in terms of the traditional medical paradigm, the younger a child is when they get diagnosed, and the therapeutic interventions, it's crucial at the young ages when the nervous system is forming to have those interventions. And so Psyche was getting a certain amount of therapies that were important to help her learn how to function in the world. I no longer think in any which way that I need to make her more normal, but I support her in learning how to function in the world, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Just to navigate this crazy world. So the governor slashed Medicaid and other services. And so Sachi's therapies, speech and occupational therapy, were cut. And I was terrified because I knew this was the foundation of the rest of her life, this young age. And so I took it to court, and that's not my nature. But I, and I felt this sense of righteousness, like I'm right here. I know my daughter needs this. And it was an informal sort of court thing. And I go into this conference room. We're sitting at a table. I could tell who was the opposing attorney. Oh, and I brought pictures of Psyche that I put in front of everybody since she couldn't come. And, I just felt this like separation from the opposing team, and this kind of like, they're wrong, we're right. And I can't remember something happened that just flipped things for me. I think it was the opposing physician, who had to make all these decisions about slashing. He was in a position where he had to slash people's therapies in order to meet this new budget that the governor had deemed, was the new budget.
A little bit prescient to what's happening now.
Yes, good point. Good point. I felt this suddenly felt this tremendous compassion for him, just relating as a physician, like what a bind he's been in. And we won the case, but it was beyond what that we won. It was such a good lesson for me in, this self-righteousness that creates the separation. And I'm going through something else right now, Raghu, just as the last couple days with Psyche school. It's like always these battles for our disabled isn't the right word. I know it's politically incorrect, but our kids that need extra support, right?
Yeah.
And I'm having to go through this again. And it's not my nature to be kind of collie-like, like zing people, but sometimes that kind of force is needed. And so I'm having to do that now, and it's real uncomfortable for me. But
the you know what? And you talk about it a little bit, but the real point here for us all, how do we become Kali-like to operate in this world in terms of standing up for people's rights,
yes,
for our rights? How do we do that without othering
yes,
them?
while our hearts are open. And coming back to Ram Dass, I had, for a long time, I had a picture of Trump. I don't even know if we're supposed to talk politics here, but anyways, there you go.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, so I put it on.
I'm kidding you. I'm kidding.
Okay.
You can talk about whatever you want.
You can delete it if I'm not supposed to. But so I put a picture of him on a chair at our table, inviting him to supper. And now this vice principal of our school, with this other issue that's come up, yesterday I was weeping, feeling powerless about something and furious. And I allowed the emotions to move through, but now I'm in a different place today, and I'm going to put a picture of him next to my Neem Karoli Baba statue, my little
picture of who?
Of this
this person in school.
So to keep my heart open, like I don't want to, I know it's a horrible feeling to other, as you said, or to create that separation, and it doesn't go anywhere.
Yep.
So all this that's going on politically, of course, we have strong emotional reactions, of course, heartbreaking, some of what's going on. And what can we do to keep our hearts open to the people that we see are causing this? I mean, at a deeper level, they're just they're just instruments. But really, how can we keep our hearts open to them? How can we recognize those? How can I recognize those aspects of aggression in myself? Not that we would do the same acts, but we all have the same feelings at times, where we want to hurt. We're so mad we want to hurt somebody, or we want to separate, or So you take it from there. Yeah.
Personally, I have a lot of difficulty in this area, as was pointed out to me when I was sitting with Ram Dass, and he had that picture of Trump on his altar, and he said, I said, really, Ram Dass, like that, incredulousness pouring out. He said, I am relating with the soul. I am not saying in fact, his incarnation and acts, I'm not saying I'm happy with them. And and he actually said, I'm sorry that you've taken on this incarnation and doing the things that you're doing, which, it's gigantic me stuff for the most part. So I said, well, God bless you, because I can't do it, Ram Dass. He would laugh about that. But no. And so here's the real fun part. In October of this year, the first book from Ram Dass, posthumous, there's been a couple of things, but not directly his writings and so on, mostly from his talks. It's called There Is No Other. When I tell people, and I keep mentioning this because it's flabbergasting, people go, I can't go there. They can't get over the fear,
Yeah.
disgust,
And
every emotion. They can't get, they includes me, by the way.
me
They,
too.
it's very difficult. It's like wow, it's how do we get to the top of that mountain?
Yes.
And the only answer there is on the picture behind you. Everybody, if you're
Uh-huh.
not on seeing this on YouTube, it says it's a beautiful rainbow, and it says you are love. And I'm imagining
It's a message
Sachi.
from Sachi. Yeah.
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 So
Yes.
that's a kind of a, everyone would say, well, that's a simplistic thing to say.
No.
But personally, I have been there with that you are love, that thing that was that love, that
Mhm.
still is, because it had no boundaries as a result of being in a body or not.
Yes.
So it's real, and it's real to me, and I know it's real to you.
Yes, it
And
is.
yet that doesn't account for the karma that we are living through that help create everything that's happening right now. We are part
Yes.
of it. And you got to do the work, whatever
We
that
have
may
to.
be.
And we have to because as you said, othering just keeps the whole thing going. We have to
Yeah.
be willing to
Yeah.
be present with our rage, without blaming. Because once we start blaming, it's projecting it outward. It's not being fully present with it. Can I be with this rage, with this pain, with this, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
clearly that's what the people that are acting from such a harsh, that are being so harsh in the world, they're deeply wounded. There's
Yeah,
there's absolutely
absolutely.
no way that they aren't.
Yeah.
So when
And
we're
there's some,
feeling the pain, the rage, we're actually processing some of this collective, that they aren't able to process, that they
yeah.
can only act out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We should, I'd like to, we're kind of at the end, but
Oh,
when I just want a little description. Well, first of all, you said that Sachi, from a very young age, saw a picture of Neem Karoli, of
oh
Maharaj-ji.
yes. In fact, I've got it. This is the one.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So she had a giant one that she carried around. I had to laminate it multiple times because it was so tattered. She would sleep with it and take it everywhere. And then she has a special connection with Krishna Das. So every time we've been to see him, she takes him one of these little ones and
Mm,
gives it to him. And I think he has one on his harmonium. But
yeah.
yeah, so she has been deeply connected with Baba since she was born, really, since the first time she could hold anything, she held that picture,
Mm,
and deeply connected with all of you beings who are in that sort of, for lack of a better word, soul grouping. I'll tell you a little story. Um, and it was one of the turning points for me. Well, yeah, it was. Um, we went to see Shamdas. He came to Charleston, and we went to see
the
him. We had never.
kirtans, I'm just going to
Yeah,
preface. So
go ahead.
Shamdas is part of the group that originally went to India and met Neem Karoli Baba, and he, like Kirtandas, was a kirtan practitioner.
Yes. And so he came to Charleston. We had never seen him before. We really enjoyed the chanting and came home and got on with our busy lives. And about a month later, Sachi started saying, she couldn't form her words yet. She started saying, and we hadn't talked about Shamdas again after that. We just got busy. She started saying, Shada, 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 over and over. And I couldn't
Mm,
understand her. This went on day after day for for at least a month, and I got really sick of it. And so finally, I finally understood what she was saying, and she was saying Shamdas, and I said, "Honey, we can't go see him. He lives in India." But she kept on, and so finally, I thought I'll just look him up on the internet, and if he's anywhere within these contiguous United States, I'm going to take her there so I can get this to stop. And so I go and look on the internet. And again, she had been saying this about a month. He had died a month before, and you know about that, just unexpectedly. And so she knew, and we went and got a flower from our garden, put it upstairs, and she hasn't mentioned him since then. She just needed me to know for some reason.
Wow.
So just this deep connection with all of us in this sort of soul grouping she has naturally.
Wow. That's so great.
Yeah.
I'd love to see her. You know, you're not that far. You should come to Boone, by the way. Everybody, we have a retreat in Boone, North Carolina. Now, every summer, and this one's August 14th through 18th, and you can go to ramdas.org and look it up and get linked up with it, whatever.
Great.
I forgot that. I'd love to see her again.
Oh, well, and you know, to keep it real too, like she's a teenager too. So it's not all joy. And, you know, she...
Joy, that was the worst horror of my life, was being a teenager.
It's awful. And, you know, she yelled at me yesterday morning, slammed the door, and, you know, we're going through the teenage. So she's very human. It's not like it's all, this. And it's challenging being the parent of someone on the spectrum, because there are so many sensitivities and, you know, meltdowns here and there. And, but her heart and her being are so open. So this, we got to go. But
no,
can I tell you,
we're not that.
Okay, can I tell you one more story that just happened last week? I went to Florida with Psyche to speak at an autism conference, and it was Psyche spring break. So we were also going to go to Disney, which we'll never go again. That was a disaster. Just all that stimulation. We'll go to Animal Kingdom, but not Magic Kingdom. But anyways, on the way down, a 7-hour trip, and I was supposed to talk that afternoon. So I left 3-hour window, like we were supposed to get there 3 hours before the talk, plenty of time to get settled into the hotel room. On the way down, we get stuck in horrible traffic for 3 hours. And as we're, you know, barely driving through this traffic, I see this big, huge truck with huge red letters, BABA, Baba. And it was not, it's one of those things.
We're not in India where everything's called Baba Industries.
Exactly. And I just knew, like I could feel where it was coming from. It wasn't just some chance, you know, I could feel. Okay, so we get stuck in all this traffic. Finally, we get to the hotel. It's time for my talk, right? And so literally with bags on my shoulders, and I'm checking in to this conference, and I walk in the conference hall, Psyche behind me, and our friend who was helping to care for her while I was giving a talk. And up on the screen is my first slide. Apparently, they had just put it up. So I go up to the front, drop my bags, and go up and give the talk. So, like, I mean, just the timing of it, I just knew it was like Baba's mischief, right? Like, that we happened to get there just in the nick of time for this talk, and in spite of the delay, and the whole thing was just, and then some other synchronicities afterwards. The lady that spoke after me is the mother of a non-speaking autistic, and they're going to come and speak at our conference too. Wow. So anyways, just a recent little Baba episode. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Oh, I want to read this one thing from something I've read before. It's from Rumi, and you put it right at the head of your book. The guest house.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And that's so great, Rumi.
I love that. Thank you for reading that.
That's something one could read every day and go, right, okay.
Yes.
Help set yourself up for the rest of the day. Thanks for being here, Melinda.
Thank you, Raghu. Such a joy to hang out and talk.
And all the different links. You should actually send me the links.
Okay.
And then we'll get the producers to put it up in the show notes, links to the book and to the conference and anything else. And, there was one thing I was gonna, oh God, there was my real awareness of autism was informed by Temple Grandin.
Yes.
Because I'm a real big animal lover. And
yeah.
I just had to, you guys out there, let's link up to Temple Grandin, her book. I mean, she has more than one. Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yes.
Anyhow, little
Beautiful
aside, but yeah. All of this will be available. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com/mindrolling, and you will see all of these links. And of course, visit BeHereNowNetwork.com. There are so many great different teachers we've been discussing. Of course, Ram Dass and Krishna Das and Jack Kornfield and Sharon Salzberg, who we love dearly. And we'll see you next week. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Raghu.